So this is my post for March 17th. I'm sorry it is about an hour late. This is a reflection on this week, and also I'm using a quote from chapter 8 to help guide me. So there's a quote on page 195 that says, "The feeling conveyed when Contact improvisers talked about the events of 1972 to 1975 was that they just happened. Opportunities arose and everyone was willing to respond." So that line to me, and Cynthia says this later, it just seemed like honestly a really good way to describe Contact in general. And in thinking about sort of what Sam had said a few classes ago and said a few times, was the idea of like trying to get out of a space where it's like planning and thinking about the next thing and but sort of just letting things happen. And my experience, so I've been thinking about that and definitely had a lot of experience with that in class this week. So I feel like in general I've been able to fall into that pretty easily because of experience I've had before with kind of that mindset. But this week in particular, and last week, I found really interesting in terms of that concept of things kind of just happening. And in particular, this week, I think using the pauses in a way kind of makes that happen. Because, well, in a sense, sort of the movement through can make things kind of just happen, but also I've been surprised about just sort of letting something stay and then things just happening. Particularly interesting observation for me that I found was I was working with Cecil in class, and when I would pause, Cecil would keep moving. And there were a bunch of times where I was somehow, like, my weight was on top of Cecil, so I would stop, but Cecil would move, so I would move too. So it was kind of this interesting, like, pseudo-pause, because I wasn't doing any, I was pausing for all I was concerned, but if you looked at me, it didn't look like I was pausing. So that was an example of things just happening. But also, I think I've gotten more comfortable with things just happening in terms of like things I don't think I would have been comfortable with before. I think like if I had the thought of that happening, I would have thought it would stop it. But in a Contact dance, it kind of just happens. So like for example, I think 2 weeks ago, Max and I were dancing, and I don't even know exactly how this happened, but somehow like I think my legs went over his head, and then I ended up like on his, like he was standing here is his head, and then I was like this behind him with my head here. We were kind of just like this, and it was really interesting. I don't know how that happened, and generally I'm not comfortable with people like picking me up sort of in that way, or shoulders or anything like that, but I was on top of his shoulders and then down. And then this week Nico went through my legs again at a certain point, and then I went on top of Nico. And I think that's not something I would have thought I would have been comfortable with, like someone basically crawling through my legs. Not something I thought I would be comfortable with. But it kind of just happened, in a way that felt really healthy and really safe and really creative and powerful. So yeah, it's kind of cool that like to be able to have, in a way, kind of that amount of intimacy, but it feeling safe and it not feeling intrusive. And only not feeling intrusive, but intimate in a very different way. Like it's intimate without being like attached, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's sort of an emotional comment on it, I guess. But yeah, so that has been a really interesting thing for me. It's just the level of physicality feels like a lot of us are having with each other at this point. And I'm really comfortable physically with people, which is probably evident from the class. But even boundaries that I previously think I have been surprised that were passed, and I was totally fine with. So yeah, that's my post of the week.